No one expected it to happen, but Jasmine Crockett, the congresswoman known for her sharp rhetoric and preachy style often seen on TV, picked the wrong opponent this time. Her target was Karoline Leavitt, the young spokesperson for Donald Trump's administration, a fresh face but far from naive. And the mistake started with a seemingly harmless jab. She doesn't even know who Lafayette is. With a smirk, Crockett thought she was scoring points with the media, the left, and the virtual applause on social media. But she didn't anticipate that Karoline doesn't play by the old rules. No apologies, no backing down, and definitely no tolerance for being lectured by a politician who thrives on slogans and cliched criticisms. Leavitt not only proved she knows American history better than expected but also posed the core question, how many in Congress truly understand why America is great? How many are using history as a veil for their current incompetence? Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. The stage lights blaze against the familiar theme music. On the large screen behind, the words "The American Spotlight" appear sharply amid a waving American flag. The camera pans over the audience, a packed studio split distinctly, one side red with MAGA hats, the other deep blue with Progress for All signs. The tension is palpable. Rachel Harper, the veteran host, steps to the center of the stage with poised confidence. Her sleek navy suit glows under the studio lights, illuminating her resolute yet captivating face. Thunderous applause erupts as she raises a hand to greet the crowd. Welcome to the American Spotlight, where we don't shy away from the big questions about America, freedom and truth, she says, her voice low, resonant and firm. Tonight we bring you a fiery dialogue, not between two opposing politicians but between two generations, two views on history and the future. She pauses, her gaze sweeping the room. Recently a French politician claimed America no longer deserves the Statue of Liberty, the symbol they gifted us over a century ago. They even said they want to take it back. The audience stirs, a few boos ringing out. Rachel raises a hand and the noise instantly quiets. This isn't just a diplomatic issue, it's a question of identity, of who we are and why the world once admired America. She turns to the table on her left, where Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett sits with her usual confidence. Congresswoman Crockett, what's your take on this controversial statement? Jasmine Crockett steps forward, her red outfit blazing like fire, her sharp eyes scanning the audience. She stands tall, chin slightly raised, exuding unyielding resolve. Thank you, Miss Harper, she says, her voice calm but cutting like a blade. The Statue of Liberty is the soul of the American dream. She pauses, her eyes locking onto Leavitt, a faint smirk tugging at her lips. Miss Leavitt, what do you know about the alliance with France? Lafayette, the 1778 Treaty, Yorktown, or are you just used to speaking for MAGA? The Democratic audience erupts, applause crashing like waves. Some hold up Crockett for justice signs, but the MAGA side grumbles, eyes fixed on Leavitt. Crockett stands firm, her confidence surging, feeling the crowd's energy. Crockett leans forward, her eyes glinting with challenge. France sent troops, warships, uniforms, she says, her voice low and weighty. Without them America would still be a colony. The Statue of Liberty was a gift from France. She raises an eyebrow, as if she's already checkmated her opponent. Do you understand its value, Karoline? The Democratic crowd laughs loudly. Some neutral spectators nod, swept up by Crockett's confidence. But deep in her eyes, a flicker of tension passes. Leavitt's calm demeanor makes her uneasy. Karoline Leavitt stands still, her platinum hair gleaming, a cross necklace gently swaying, a radiant Gen Z smile. Her eyes sharp as if she just swiped past a weak comment. She picks up the mic, steps to the stage's edge, shoulders relaxed, radiating confidence. Jasmine, that history lesson was total vibes, she says, her tone dripping with sarcasm. But let me drop some facts to make it more lit. The younger crowd chuckles, and MAGA applause surges. Leavitt winks, her heart blazing with determination, like she's live streaming to millions. The 1778 treaty wasn't just France helping America, Leavitt says, her voice steady, eyes alight. Franklin persuaded France to invest troops, ships, money. Yorktown, the French Navy blockaded, but Washington and Lafayette teamed up to take down Cornwallis. She pauses, a playful smile spreading. That's teamwork, Jasmine. The MAGA crowd leaps to their feet, cheers crashing like waves. Some neutral spectators raise their eyebrows, impressed by Leavitt's poise. Inside, she tells herself, "Keep it cool, Karoline. You're owning this." Leavitt tilts her head, her eyes sparkling as if she just dropped a line as pure as distilled water. The Statue of Liberty. It's not just a gift from France, it's the vibe of freedom, of responsibility. She raises her hand, voice vibrant. MAGA keeps it shining with security and prosperity. Cheers from the MAGA crowd, mix with boos from the Democrats. A young audience member whispers, "She's totally slaying." Leavitt smiles, pride surging within her, but she stays vigilant, knowing Crockett is gearing up for a counterattack. Crockett grips the mic, her eyes flashing with determination, though her lips betray a hint of tension. "Miss Leavitt, don't twist the narrative," she retorts, her voice firm, stepping closer to Leavitt. "The Statue of Liberty welcomes immigrants." She pauses, her gaze aiming to overpower. "Your policies, the wall, the bans, destroy that promise." She raises an eyebrow, trying to regain control. France sent 12,000 troops. Lafayette was international alliance. The Democratic audience claps, but the applause is thinner. Crockett feels the pressure, her words aren't landing as hard. Leavitt smiles, her eyes like she's screenshotting Crockett's weak spot. "Jasmine, I know about the 12,000 troops, and Rochambeau's ships," she says, her voice light but sharp. "But Washington led Yorktown, with France's support. That's alliance, not a competition." She leans in, a sly Gen Z smile. "Immigration, MAGA welcomes legal immigrants, but freedom needs law." She pauses, locking eyes with Crockett. "You want to protect the statue, protect America first." The MAGA crowd erupts, cheers thundering. Neutral spectators stand, swayed by Leavitt's sharpness. Rachel Harper maintains a polished smile, one hand on the host's table, her voice lowering as if to underscore. "Can we both secure our borders, and open our arms? Can we protect national values without losing the compassion that shaped America's image?" She turns slightly toward Crockett, her gaze both empowering and challenging. "Congresswoman Crockett, given Secretary Leavitt's argument that security is the foundation of freedom, how do you balance protecting the nation with preserving the humanitarian spirit the statue represents?" Crockett takes a deep breath, her eyes wavering, her hand tightening on the mic. "Rachel, we're not against security," she says, her voice slightly shaky. "But Leavitt's policies tear families apart." She pauses, her eyes seeking audience support. "The statue is compassion, not a wall." Her argument holds weight, but lacks fire, and neutral spectators lean toward Leavitt. Crockett senses her disadvantage, a pang of anxiety rising. The studio buzzes with energy, cheers and applause from MAGA and progressive sides blending into a vibrant sea of sound. Stage lights illuminate Rachel Harper, her navy suit accentuating her commanding presence. She gives a slight smile, her sharp eyes scanning the audience, then raises a hand, instantly silencing the room. "Ladies and gentlemen," she says, her warm voice measured, each word deliberate like the rhythm of a symphony. "Today we've witnessed a fiery dialogue about the Statue of Liberty and the values it represents. A debate not just about history, but about America's vital role in the modern world." She pauses, her eyes bright as if guiding the next discussion. "But what makes our freedom so strong? Is it the resolve to defend our ideals or the compassion to embrace all who seek our shores? Let's look back at another moment in American history, World War II, when great allies fought a common enemy. That was when America not only upheld freedom's ideals but became the cornerstone of the free world. The question is, what role did America play in that war, and have the values of defending freedom changed in today's global context?" She turns to Leavitt, emphasizing the weight of history. "Secretary Leavitt, as a strong advocate for protecting the nation and American values, can you share your perspective on America's contribution to World War II and how we can preserve those values in today's world?" Karoline Leavitt steps forward, her platinum hair gleaming under the lights, her cross necklace swaying subtly as a refined accent. Her Gen Z smile radiates, but her eyes are sharp, ready to clap back like she's on a live stream. She holds the mic, her posture relaxed, exuding confidence. "Thank you, Miss Harper," she says, her voice light but incisive, like she's kicking off a viral vlog. "World War II was when America proved alliance strength. D-Day, Normandy, 73,000 American troops landed, thousands sacrificed to liberate Europe. She pauses, her gaze sweeping the audience, a playful smile flickering. Jasmine, I bet you're proud of that too, right? The MAGA crowd roars, applause booming. Some neutral spectators nod, caught up in Leavitt's energy. Leavitt raises her hand, her voice lively as if rallying millions. America didn't just send troops, we supplied weapons, food through Lend-Lease, keeping the Allies strong. She tilts her head, eyes sparkling. That's America first without abandoning friends. The MAGA crowd leaps to their feet, cheers thundering. Jasmine Crockett grips the mic, her eyes flashing with determination, but her shoulders tense slightly, as if the pressure from the earlier debate still weighs on her. She steps forward, her fiery red outfit highlighting her resolute stance. Thank you, Miss Harper, she says, her voice low but sharp, like a speaker reclaiming the stage. Miss Leavitt, you talk about D-Day, but don't forget the other allies. She pauses, her eyes locking onto Leavitt, a faint smirk tugging at her lips. France, Britain, the Soviet Union, they sacrificed millions. America only joined in 1941. You call that leading? The Democratic audience claps, some holding up Crockett speaks truth signs, but the applause lacks its earlier vigor, and Crockett feels the pressure. Leavitt's confidence is shaking her. Crockett leans forward, her eyes aiming to overpower. The Soviets bore the heaviest losses, 27 million people, she says, her voice heavy with weight. The Allies coordinated, not America alone saving Europe. She raises an eyebrow, trying to reclaim her confidence. Miss Leavitt, history isn't a meme for you to flex. The Democratic crowd laughs loudly, but some neutral spectators whisper, sensing Leavitt's sharpness. Leavitt smiles, her eyes like she's pinpointing every flaw in Crockett's argument. Jasmine, I respect the Allies, she says, her voice light but cutting like she just pinned a top-tier comment. But America didn't join late, we were preparing from the start. She steps forward, shoulders relaxed, her Gen Z smile radiant. Before 1941, America sent billions through Lend-Lease. D-Day. Over 2,000 American soldiers died at Omaha Beach. She pauses, her eyes blazing. That's leadership, Jasmine. The MAGA crowd erupts. Cheers crashing like a tidal wave. Crockett grips the mic tighter, her eyes wavering, but she tries to maintain her composure. Miss Leavitt, don't oversimplify, she retorts. Her voice firm, her eyes seeking audience support. The Soviets lost 27 million. America was just part of the Allies. She pauses, her eyes flashing with determination. Do you even know how many American soldiers died at Omaha Beach? She raises an eyebrow, as if landing a critical blow. The Democratic audience claps, but the applause fades quickly. Crockett senses her disadvantage. Her question didn't hit as planned. Leavitt tilts her head, her smile like she's just hearted the audience. Jasmine, over 2,000 American soldiers died at Omaha Beach, she says, her voice steady, eyes sharp. But it's not just numbers, it's the spirit of alliance. America, Britain, France, Canada, fought together. She raises her hand, her voice vibrant. America led with strength and sacrifice to defend freedom. A neutral spectator whispers, she answered that perfectly. Leavitt stands tall, her confidence soaring, knowing she just scored big. Rachel Harper interjects, her voice smooth, her eyes scanning the audience. She leans in, her gaze sharp. Congresswoman Crockett, you mentioned the Soviet losses. How do we assess America's role compared to other nations in shaping the victory? Crockett takes a deep breath, her eyes wavering, her hand gripping the mic until her knuckles pale. Rachel, America played a key role, she says, her voice slightly shaky, her eyes seeking support. But the victory was a collective effort. The Soviets, Britain, France all sacrificed. She pauses, her eyes flashing with determination, but lacking fire. America can't claim all the credit. The Democratic audience claps, but the applause is sparse. Crockett feels the mounting pressure, her arguments are faltering. Leavitt raises her mic, her Gen Z smile like she just swiped past a weak comment. Jasmine, the victory was a collective effort, she says, her voice steady, eyes blazing. But America led with 16 million troops, billions of dollars, and blood spilled at Normandy. She steps forward, shoulders relaxed, exuding confidence. That's the truth, not claiming credit. The studio lights blaze, the audience erupting with applause and cheers, creating an unstoppable wave of energy. The MAGA side hoists red signs, while the progressive side counters with blue banners, the atmosphere like a battleground of ideas. Rachel Harper stands center stage, her navy suit accentuating her commanding presence, her sharp eyes scanning the crowd. She raises a hand slightly, and the studio falls silent. "Ladies and gentlemen," she says, her warm voice deliberate, each word chosen like the rhythm of a perfect speech. "We've just explored America's critical role in World War II, when freedom was defended through sacrifice and unity among allies. But that's only part of the story. History teaches us that freedom isn't easily won. It must be protected, sustained through every generation." She pauses, her gaze sweeping each spectator, then turns back to the two guests. "But the question remains, can we protect core freedom values while facing a changing world and unrelenting immigration crises? How do we balance compassion with national security?" She turns to Crockett, her tone serious but provocative. "Congresswoman Crockett, while freedom remains America's foundation, can we find immigration policy solutions that don't sacrifice our essence? What's your view?" Jasmine Crockett steps forward, her eyes gleaming with determination but tinged with tension from the previous debates. She grips the mic, standing firm, chin slightly raised. "Thank you, Miss Harper," she says, her voice low but sharp, like a speaker pouring everything into reclaiming the stage. "Freedom is America's promise, an open door for those fleeing oppression." She pauses, her gaze sweeping over Leavitt, a faint smirk tugging at her lips. "But Miss Leavitt, MAGA policies, walls, deportations are slamming that door shut. Freedom isn't a privilege for a few, it's a right for all." The Democratic audience erupts, applause booming. Some hold up Crockett for equality signs, but the MAGA side shakes their heads, eyes fixed on Leavitt. Crockett leans forward, her eyes aiming to overpower. "Immigration built America," she says, her voice heavy with weight. "From those who crossed the Atlantic to today, they brought dreams and strength." She raises an eyebrow, her voice sharper. "Miss Leavitt, do you know how many families have been torn apart by MAGA policies?" The Democratic crowd cheers, some neutral spectators whisper, swept up by Crockett's emotion. But deep down, she feels the pressure, her words need to hit harder to counter Leavitt. Karoline Leavitt stands still, her platinum hair gleaming, her cross necklace gently swaying. Her Gen Z smile radiates, her eyes sharp like she's ready to roast a live stream comment. She picks up the mic, steps to the stage's edge, her posture relaxed but exuding confidence. "Jasmine, I feel your passion," she says, her voice light but sarcastic, like she's kicking off a TikTok drama. "But freedom doesn't mean ignoring the law." She pauses, her gaze sweeping the audience, a playful smile flickering. "MAGA welcomes legal immigration, but security is the foundation." The MAGA crowd claps loudly, some neutral spectators nod. Leavitt stands tall, confidence surging, thinking, "Keep it sharp, Karoline, you're in control." Leavitt raises her hand, her voice vibrant. "Legal immigration brings strength, but illegal immigration strains communities," she says, her eyes blazing. "Last year, over 2 million illegal border crossings. That's a problem, Jasmine." She tilts her head, her Gen Z smile sparkling. "Freedom needs order to survive." The MAGA crowd leaps to their feet, cheers crashing like a tidal wave. A young spectator whispers, "Karoline is totally slaying." Leavitt smiles, pride surging, but she stays vigilant, knowing Crockett is gearing up for a counterattack. Crockett grips the mic, her eyes flashing with determination, but her shoulders tremble slightly, as if Leavitt's pressure weighs on her. "Miss Leavitt, you talk about law but forget compassion," she retorts, her voice firm, stepping closer to Leavitt. "Families torn apart, children in detention camps, that's your order." She pauses, her gaze aiming to overpower. "Freedom is the American dream, not a wall." The Democratic audience claps, but the applause is weaker than before. Leavitt smiles, her eyes like she's locking onto every flaw in Crockett's argument. "Jasmine, I agree, compassion is core," she says, her voice light but sharp, like she just pinned a top-tier comment. But the law protects the American dream for everyone. She steps forward, shoulders relaxed, her Gen Z smile radiant. MAGA isn't against immigration, we're against illegal crossings. In 2024, cross-border crime rose 20%. What's your solution, Jasmine? She pauses, her eyes blazing, like she just landed a critical blow. Crockett grips the mic tighter, her eyes wavering, but she tries to maintain her composure. Miss Leavitt, don't distort the truth, she retorts, her voice trembling slightly, her eyes seeking support. We want immigration reform, not mass deportations. She pauses, her eyes flashing with determination. Do you know how many children have been separated from their parents? She raises an eyebrow, trying to regain control. Leavitt tilts her head, her smile like she's just hearted the audience. Jasmine, I know, over 5,000 children were protected from trafficking last year, she says, her voice steady, eyes sharp. MAGA reforms immigration with law, not emotion. She raises her hand, her voice vibrant. Freedom is the American dream, but it must be safe for everyone. The MAGA crowd leaps to their feet, applause thundering. A neutral spectator whispers, Karoline's answer was spot on. Leavitt stands tall, confidence soaring, knowing she just scored big. Rachel Harper interjects, her eyes sharp. Congresswoman Crockett, you mentioned immigration reform. How do you ensure the Security Secretary Leavitt emphasizes while preserving the compassionate spirit of the American dream? Crockett takes a deep breath, her eyes wavering, her hand gripping the mic until her knuckles pale. Rachel, we want security, but not by tearing families apart, she says, her voice trembling slightly, her eyes seeking support. Immigration reform needs humanity, not walls. She pauses, her eyes flashing with determination, but lacking fire. Leavitt raises her mic, her Gen Z smile like she just swiped past a weak comment. Jasmine, humanity is great, but security is the foundation, she says, her voice steady, eyes blazing. MAGA reforms immigration to protect the American dream for everyone. She steps forward, shoulders relaxed, exuding confidence. Freedom needs law to survive. The auditorium darkens with only a strong spotlight beaming down on the center stage, the audience holding their breath in tension, amid an atmosphere thick with confrontation. In the eye of the storm, Rachel Harper stands firm on stage, her sharp eyes sweeping across the utterly silent studio, as if everyone is holding their breath for what's next. Ladies and gentlemen, she begins, her voice low and steady, like a conductor opening the final symphony. We've just heard a debate on immigration, where freedom and responsibility must coexist in a turbulent world. She pauses, shifting her gaze to both guests, a candid but polite invitation. However, if immigration tests our compassion and security, there's another value under greater pressure than ever, free speech. Not just the right to speak, but the ability to exist and defend truth in an era where voices are stifled by division, censorship, and polarized opinion. Rachel's voice lowers but retains its edge. Free speech, the lifeblood of democracy, faces a critical question: can it be sustained in the age of social media, cancel culture, and the radicalization of arguments? She turns to Crockett, her voice clear, neutral, but weighty. Congresswoman Crockett, from your perspective, how should free speech be understood and protected in today's context? And can we uphold democratic principles when opposing voices are increasingly marginalized? Jasmine Crockett steps forward, her eyes gleaming with determination, but tinged with tension from earlier debates. Free speech is the heart of democracy. She pauses, her gaze sweeping over Leavitt, a faint smirk tugging at her lips. But Miss Leavitt, the MAGA administration fuels division, spreads misinformation. Is that free speech, or undermining democracy? The Democratic audience erupts, applause booming. Crockett leans forward, her eyes aiming to overpower. Democracy demands responsibility, she says, her voice heavy with weight. Misinformation from MAGA threatens our foundation. She raises an eyebrow, her voice sharper. Miss Leavitt, how do you justify speech that incites violence? The Democratic crowd cheers. Some neutral spectators whisper, swept up by Crockett's emotion. Karoline Leavitt stands still, her platinum hair gleaming, her cross necklace gently swaying. Her Gen Z smile radiates, her eyes sharp like she's ready to roast a live stream comment. She picks up the mic, steps to the stage's edge, her posture relaxed but exuding confidence. Jasmine, I feel your passion, she says, her voice light but sarcastic, like she's kicking off a drama. But free speech is everyone's right, not just those you agree with. She pauses, her gaze sweeping the audience, a playful smile flickering. MAGA defends the right to speak truth, even if it makes you uncomfortable. Leavitt raises her hand, countering. Free speech is democracy's foundation, but the left wants to control it, she says, her eyes blazing. Bans, censorship online, that's the real threat to democracy. She tilts her head, her Gen Z smile sparkling. Jasmine, what do you think about platforms silencing conservative voices? She pauses, locking eyes with Crockett, like she just landed a critical blow. Crockett grips the mic, her eyes flashing with determination, but her shoulders tremble slightly, as if Leavitt's pressure weighs on her. Miss Leavitt, don't distort the truth, she retorts, her voice firm, stepping closer to Leavitt. We don't censor, we combat harmful misinformation. She pauses, her gaze aiming to overpower. January 6th was the result of MAGA rhetoric. Is that your free speech? The Democratic audience claps, but the applause is weaker than before. Crockett senses her disadvantage, her passion isn't resonating as strongly. Leavitt smiles, her eyes like she's locking onto every flaw in Crockett's argument. Jasmine, free speech includes views you don't like, she says, her voice light but sharp, like she just pinned a top-tier comment. MAGA condemns violence, but the left uses it to censor millions of voices. She steps forward, shoulders relaxed, her Gen Z smile radiant. In 2024, over 10,000 conservative accounts were banned. You call that democracy? She pauses, her eyes blazing, like she just delivered a knockout blow. Crockett grips the mic tighter, her eyes wavering, but she tries to maintain her composure. Miss Leavitt, don't twist the narrative, she retorts, her voice trembling slightly, her eyes seeking support. We protect democracy by combating misinformation. She pauses, her eyes flashing with determination. Do you know how many acts of violence stemmed from MAGA rhetoric? She raises an eyebrow, trying to regain control. Leavitt tilts her head, her smile like she's just hearted the audience. Jasmine, I know violence is wrong, and MAGA condemns it, she says, her voice steady, eyes sharp, but censoring millions of voices isn't the solution. She raises her hand, her voice vibrant. Free speech is democracy, letting everyone speak, debate, and find the truth. The MAGA crowd leaps to their feet, applause thundering. A neutral spectator whispers, Karoline's answer was spot on. Leavitt stands tall, confidence soaring, knowing she just scored big. Rachel Harper interjects, Congresswoman Crockett, you mentioned misinformation. How do we balance protecting democracy with ensuring all voices are heard? As Secretary Leavitt suggests, she guides the discussion smoothly, keeping the program coherent, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction at the debate's pace. Crockett takes a deep breath, her eyes wavering, her hand gripping the mic until her knuckles pale. Rachel, we want to protect democracy, she says, her voice trembling slightly, her eyes seeking support. But harmful misinformation must be stopped. She pauses, her eyes flashing with determination, but lacking fire. Free speech can't be an excuse for violence. The Democratic audience claps, but the applause fades quickly. Leavitt raises her mic, her Gen Z smile like she just swiped past a weak comment. Jasmine, stopping violence is right, but censorship isn't the way, she says, her voice steady, eyes blazing. Free speech is for debate, not silence. She steps forward, shoulders relaxed, exuding confidence. MAGA fights for real democracy, every voice heard. The stage lights soften, but the heat in the studio remains unrelenting. One side of the audience rises, cheering, with thunderous applause from the MAGA crowd, while the opposing side quietly leaves their seats, some disappointed, others nodding silently at the unexpected turn of events. Rachel Harper steps forward for one final beat, the soft light illuminating her elegant navy suit. A faint smile plays on her lips as she surveys the room, as if encapsulating all the energy, debate, and emotion of the dialogue. Ladies and gentlemen, she begins, her voice low, steady, and powerful. Tonight we didn't just witness a debate about history, immigration, or free speech. We saw two generations, two perspectives, and two visions of America coexist, clashing, challenging, and illuminating each other. She pauses, her gaze shifting to the now quiet audience. In an era of division, perhaps the most valuable thing isn't just the triumph of a stronger argument, but the ability to listen to each other in the end. The American Spotlight will return with more voices. For tonight, we thank you for joining us. As the show ends, Karoline Leavitt steps backstage, her platinum hair still gleaming, her cross necklace gently swaying. Her Gen Z smile beams, but her eyes reflect a mix of relief and pride. She pauses, taking a deep breath, as if she just finished a million-view live stream. A group of MAGA aides surrounds her, their applause lively. "Karoline, you were phenomenal," a young aide cheers, holding up a phone to capture the moment. Kayleigh McEnany, standing nearby, approaches, her eyes sparkling. "You did better than I ever did," she says warmly, placing a hand on Leavitt's shoulder. Leavitt smiles, pride surging, but she clenches her hand, thinking, the pressure's just beginning. "Thanks, Kayleigh," she replies, her voice soft but brimming with emotion. But Jasmine wasn't an easy opponent. Her humility makes the MAGA team admire her even more. On the other side of backstage, Jasmine Crockett retreats to a quiet corner, her fiery red outfit now like a flame flickering out. She removes her mic, her eyes heavy, shoulders slightly slumped. A Democratic advisor approaches, whispering, "You did your best, Jasmine. Leavitt just got lucky." Crockett shakes her head, her eyes flashing with disappointment mixed with self-reflection. "It wasn't luck," she says, her voice low, almost a whisper. "She was more prepared than I thought." She sinks into a chair, her hand brushing her hair, her heart heavy. "I underestimated her." A young reporter tries to approach, mic extended, but Crockett raises a hand, her eyes resolute. "No interviews right now," she says, her voice firm but polite. She needs time to process the loss, to reignite her fire. Meanwhile, Leavitt is pulled aside by a young local channel reporter, his eyes gleaming with admiration. "Secretary Leavitt, how did you take down Congresswoman Crockett?" he asks, voice excited. Leavitt tilts her head, her Gen Z smile returning. "Take down? I just spoke the truth," she says, her voice playful but sharp. "Jasmine's tough, but I was ready to slay." The reporter laughs, jotting notes quickly, while Leavitt winks, her confidence still blazing. A MAGA aide whispers to a colleague, "She was born for this." Leavitt overhears, smiles, but a flicker of anxiety crosses her mind. The press secretary role will bring even bigger challenges. Backstage, studio staff bustle, packing up equipment. Leavitt sits in a chair, holding a water bottle, her eyes distant. A MAGA colleague claps her shoulder, voice excited. "You just made history, Karoline." She nods, smiling faintly, but her heart is heavy. This victory is just the start, but the pressure won't stop, she thinks, her hand absently touching her cross necklace. Kayleigh McEnany sits beside her, her eyes gentle. "How do you feel?" she asks. Leavitt takes a deep breath, her voice soft but sincere, "Like I just ran a marathon, but I'm ready for the next leg." McEnany nods, her eyes shining with trust. "You'll do it," she says, her voice certain. In another corner, Crockett stands, her eyes gradually regaining their resolve. She whispers to her advisor, "I need to rethink my strategy." Leavitt isn't just a young face, the advisor nods, jotting notes quickly, but Crockett's eyes spark with renewed determination. Today's defeat isn't the end, she thinks, her hand clenching as if rekindling her fire. A studio staff member passing by whispers to a colleague, "Crockett looks like she's coming back stronger." Crockett overhears, the corner of her mouth twitching upward, her heart vowing, they haven't seen anything yet. Leavitt stands before a mirror, adjusting her hair, her eyes blazing as if she just nailed a stellar performance. An aide rushes over, handing her a phone. "Secretary, the president's calling." Leavitt takes a deep breath, a flicker of nerves crossing her, but she quickly regains her composure. "Thanks," she says, her voice steady, stepping to a quiet corner to answer. A deep, authoritative voice comes through, "Karoline, you made me proud." Leavitt smiles, pride surging, but she knows, this is just the beginning. A week after the showdown at the American Spotlight, the debate's aftershocks still ripple through Washington, D.C. and beyond. Online forums explode, audiences pick sides, and the media relentlessly dissects every moment. Karoline Leavitt and Jasmine Crockett, the two central figures, now face the waves of impact from their victory and defeat, shaping their paths forward. Karoline Leavitt sits in the White House press secretary's office, sunlight streaming through the window, glinting off her platinum hair and cross necklace against her vest. Her computer screen displays a slew of glowing headlines. MAGA's Gen Z star crushes Democratic Congresswoman and Leavitt the new voice of the White House. She gives a faint smile, her eyes shining with pride, but her fingers lightly trace the desk, her heart tinged with unease. This victory is a turning point, but the pressure is only just beginning, she thinks. An aide knocks and enters, beaming. "Secretary, the President wants you to lead this week's press briefing," he says, voice excited. Leavitt nods, her voice calm. "I'm ready." But as the aide leaves, she takes a deep breath, her eyes heavy. Her role now isn't just speaking, it's shaping MAGA's image before the nation. That morning, Leavitt receives a text from Kayleigh McEnany. "You're making us proud. Keep slaying." She chuckles, warmth filling her, but the weight of pressure lingers. A call from the MAGA media team reports, "Your followers spiked by 200,000 after the show." Leavitt smiles, but her eyes flicker with worry. "They expect me to never slip up," she thinks, her hand touching her cross necklace for comfort. She stands, walks to the window, gazing at the White House, her resolve igniting. "I'll prove I'm worthy," she vows, her eyes blazing, ready for bigger challenges. Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett sits in her congressional office, soft light illuminating her sleek black outfit. Before her is a stack of reports and emails from constituents, mostly supportive but sprinkled with criticism. She skims an article, Crockett outmatched by Leavitt, a question mark for Democrats. Her eyes sink, her heart heavy with disappointment, but the corner of her mouth curls into a resilient smile. "They think I'll crumble. They're wrong," she thinks, her hand gripping her pen tightly. An advisor enters, eyes concerned. "Congresswoman, the media team suggests a speech to regain momentum," he says. Crockett nods, her voice low. "I'll do more than that." She stands, her eyes gleaming with determination, like a fire being rekindled. "Leavitt may have won this round, but I'll come back stronger," she thinks. Meanwhile, Leavitt prepares for her first press briefing since the victory. She stands before a mirror, adjusting her vest, her eyes sharp but her heart fluttering with nerves. A veteran reporter who interviewed her at the American Spotlight texts, "Shine bright, Secretary." Leavitt smiles, but her hand trembles slightly as she holds her notes. "All eyes are on me," she thinks, taking a deep breath to steady herself. Stepping into the briefing room, camera flashes erupt, the audience claps, and Leavitt flashes her radiant Gen Z smile. "Thank you all," she says, her voice steady. "Let's get started." Her heart burns with resolve, knowing every word now carries weight. 3 months after the fiery clash at the American Spotlight, Karoline Leavitt's name is no longer just that of a young Trump campaign spokesperson, it's become a new icon in American politics. The debate with Jasmine Crockett, initially seen as just another political exchange, is now viewed as a major turning point, where Leavitt cemented a convincing victory through both argument and stage presence. From Congress in Washington, D.C., to voter communities in Texas, Florida, and Pennsylvania, her debate video has been shared millions of times, sparking discussion not only among conservatives, but also among moderates seeking a fresh voice. While Jasmine Crockett steps back from the media for a time to reposition her strategy, Leavitt rises powerfully, appearing frequently on major news channels and being invited to speak at numerous national political events. No longer just a new face, Karoline is now recognized as one of the most influential young figures in the Republican Party. That debate didn't just ignite social media, it sparked profound questions about identity, responsibility, and America's future. And in that moment, Karoline Leavitt seized the opportunity, stepping out from the shadow of youth to declare, she's not just a player in the game, but someone reshaping its rules. The debate between Karoline Leavitt and Jasmine Crockett on the American Spotlight reflects the deep polarization and dynamism of American politics today, where values like freedom, democracy, and responsibility are fiercely contested. Leavitt, with her Gen Z style and sharp confidence, represents the new wave of MAGA, emphasizing law and security on issues like immigration and free speech. Crockett, with her resilience and compassion, embodies the democratic spirit, fighting for justice and inclusion. Both, though opposed, demonstrate the power of preparation, perseverance, and the ability to learn from defeat. Leavitt, despite her victory, faces the pressure of maintaining her public image, as seen when she reflects anxiously in the press secretary's office. Crockett, despite her loss, transforms disappointment into motivation, as when she repositions herself through speeches in Texas. These details from Leavitt's Gen Z smile to Crockett's resolute gaze reflect the reality that success in modern American society demands not only talent but also adaptability and resilience. A lesson for real life. In America's polarized society, everyone can learn from Leavitt and Crockett to face challenges. Prepare thoroughly like Leavitt, using data and confidence to defend your stance, but remain humble under pressure, as she did when contemplating her greater responsibility. At the same time, persevere like Crockett, turning failure into opportunity, as she did by reigniting her fire through voter meetings. In work, studies or community debates, listen to opponents, learn from them, and continually improve. Freedom and democracy, as both figures debated, are not just rights but responsibilities. Each person must contribute with sincerity and action. Subscribe to stay updated so you don't miss fiery debates like Leavitt and Crockett's at the American Spotlight. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in the next video.